Yeah. Thanks for joining me for this interview, Shirin.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, let's get started. The first question I want to ask you is, what problem do you solve for a company?
Yeah, so I believe what I really help my clients solve is identifying their who, their what, and their why. So my focus is product marketing, and I've been doing that for about 10 years. And who is your target audience, really clarifying those personas and who they are. And we get into all the details of that. What is the product? So we get into the features, the benefits, how do we talk about it? And then the why is really around why are you unique in the market? So this is where we start. And then how we communicate all this across marketing and sales channels is really where I focus in product marketing. So that's a high level problem.
Love this framing, the who, the what, and the why. All right,
Thank you.
can you make it more tangible by giving me an example of maybe your favorite project that you've done?
Yeah, there's probably a couple that I feel like have had a lot of impact. So one is I worked with two founders, just two people, probably a couple years ago. And why I really found that impactful is founders have so much information and so much excitement about their product and their business. They often don't take the time to really do that positioning work. So I love when I see their eyes open and they get excited to ask these types of questions and really do that research. And because it was only two of them and it's such a small company, that was so meaningful to me and really impactful. So there's another example I have with a larger company too, that was a 500-person company merging with another company, and they still needed some repositioning. So I have a small example and a big example. And that's what makes the work so exciting is product marketing matters across the board.
Totally, these are amazing examples. So across the board, we have like you work the full spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, what do you love about your work? You mentioned that you love the impact you had, but what else?
Yeah. I mean, I love product marketing. I love the actual work that I do. But I really, really enjoy doing it in a consulting way now. So I started my own business 3.5 years ago. And I just love the autonomy around it. I have a little bit more flexibility around the work that I choose. I wouldn't say I have a huge flexibility around my schedule. I think people have a misconception or a myth that, oh, you own your own business, you can take your days off whenever you want. It's like, not really, because my clients are working like 8:30 or 9 till 5:30. So I need to also be working around that time. However, I have more choice and I really love that. I love the fact that I have choice on the work that I do. How I do that work is not dictated by 20 other people, such as it is in a corporation. And I will say, I just always add at this point that I've learned so much from working in corporate that's enabled me to do the work that I do. So I never discredit that. But that's what makes me love what I do now is taking all of that and having that autonomy and freedom and more flexibility and choice.
That's amazing. And tell us, why did you choose to go from a full-time employee to a consultant in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those reasons that I just mentioned, actually. Those were some of my personal reasons of why I did it. And then I actually left corporate before the pandemic. And what's interesting is we actually didn't have flexible work at home policies then. And I actually really wanted to have more ownership over some of that. And I work better sometimes at home. Sometimes I work better in a cafe. Sometimes I work better actually in an office setting. So I think that was another reason I just needed to change how I worked a little bit. And then lastly, I'll say I honestly don't care a lot about job titles. I didn't care to become, I was director of product marketing when I left my last position. But to be honest, I didn't care about working up the corporate ladder, becoming VP of product marketing one day or CMO. That's not what matters to me. And quite honestly, I think you're more involved in politics and even more meetings with that. So I was like, I don't think I really want to do that. I'm going to be actually doing less of my own work if I do that. So yeah, so because of that, all those reasons above, I wanted to switch.
And was it scary when you first, quit your job to make the switch?
Oh yeah, of course it's scary. I think I took about 6 months of preparation while I was at my job. I met with a lot of people. I did some financial planning because I think you really need to see like what's your runway in case you don't have a client. Like how much money do you have in the bank? 100%. I think if you weren't scared, that would be more abnormal than normal. I think it's definitely scary, but for me, I'm more of a planned risk take, calculated, that's the word, calculated risk taker. So I did my calculations, then I felt I could take the risk.
That's smart. And how did you get your first client after you left your full-time job?
Yeah, my first client was actually through an organization called Techstars. So they're a global organization and I mentor for them. I mentor for the startups that go through the cohorts. And I didn't get a client that I was mentoring already, but it was a referral from someone in that network. So I didn't know them, but somebody else who knew me said, oh, you're looking for product marketing. We know someone named Shirin, you should work with her. So that was really, really great. It was such a, I mean, it's the best feeling to get your first client, right? Because the hardest part, I think, is getting your first client.
Exactly. Yeah. And how have you been getting your clients after that?
I would say my two best sources, content that I post on LinkedIn gives me a lot of visibility. And then my network. I think your network, you have to work your network. You need to build really good, I mean, genuine, really. When I say work your network, I mean genuine relationships. I don't mean just like random connections. Really get to know people, connect with people, tell them what you do and what you focus on. And I have really found those two sources really mostly bring me inbound clients.
That's amazing. And can you dive a little deeper into what's your process for networking?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think there's two ways. There's obviously in person, whether there's events that you can go to that are somewhat relevant to the work that you do. And when I go to an event, I always say even one, maybe two connections is great. I don't think there's a need to go and like meet 15 people because those aren't going to be as deep of relationships. Talk to one or two people, really get to know them, show interest, connect with them on LinkedIn after, maybe set up a follow-up chat after that, start to build the relationship. So that's in person. Of course, there's also virtually some of us that can't go to events all the time anymore. There's maybe less, there's a little bit more events now coming back, but there's not maybe as much as before. So LinkedIn, I mean, reach out to people, have a cold intro kind of ready to go, but really find a commonality when you send them a message. Or ask somebody else to introduce you. Those are the warmest intros you could get.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. And my final three questions. So how do you prevent burnout with the consulting work?
Yeah. So I think one of the hardest things with consulting is anticipating your workload. So we obviously look at our scope and estimate the number of hours we're going to be working, but not easy, I think, to estimate it. So just try to estimate the best as you can. Two, communicate with your clients when you are going to take off. So in the summer, I actually did half day Fridays. And I told them, I was like, after 2 o'clock on Fridays, I'm not going to be at my computer, but I will get back to you as soon as I can on Mondays. So build in those breaks, even on a day-to-day, build them in on your calendar as much as you can to really avoid burnout. Hopefully you're not in as many meetings as when you were in corporate. That's the goal. So hopefully I definitely feel less burnt out than when I was in corporate.
Amazing. And what does consulting enable for you outside of your work life?
Yeah, so I think one, it's related to work, but also personal. I think I've built some new connections because of it, new communities I've become part of. Some that even become like friends because you just get to know each other at a different level. You're all consultants. So I would say that. And then I think enabling me, again, the more autonomy, I've honestly felt happier. I mean, that's the biggest piece. I've felt more happy with the work that I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I'm so grateful to say that. What else can you ask for when you're working? That's what we all aim for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so happy for you, Sharon.
Thank you.
And talking about communities, you recently joined the Mylance community, and we love having you there. So can you just tell us what made you join the Mylance community?
Yeah, so one of my really good friends who also started her own consulting business joined the Mylance community, and she had such wonderful things to say about it. So far, and I know I've only touched the surface. So far, the community itself is so great. I love the ability that I can ask questions with other consultants who have very similar day-to-days. And I can say, how do you think about this? Can you help promote my LinkedIn post? What do you guys do when this situation arises? I even just love reading. I love reading what the conversations are. So for me, I think what drew me in was somebody else who really enjoyed it. And that's the best marketing is word of mouth. And I'm already seeing value, and I'm only 2 weeks in actually. So I'm excited to explore it further.
Love it. I'm so happy that you're getting so much value out of the Mylance community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for this chat, Shirin. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, you as well. Thank you for having me.